How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, S-H-O-W, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Greetings, welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the United States from Middle Georgia, not D.C., not New York, but from real America. Broadcast. Oh, man, does it make them mad when you say that, too. Welcome. The phone number, 877-973-7425. If you want to be on the program, let's talk about blue skies. There's blue sky outside right now. But I'm not talking about that sort of blue sky. I'm talking about the Twitter competitor, BlueSky. Let me back up. Elon Musk took over Twitter during the Biden administration. And by then, progressives were upset because he was no longer one of them. And, so back during the Obama administration, a little bit of a tangent. Kathleen Sebelius was the Secretary of Health and Human Services. She's the one who sued the nuns. I remember when that case happened, I was still at CNN. And I was in the he won't mind me saying this, but I was sitting in the green room with Paul Begala, who had been the Clinton strategist with Carville. Begala and I were sitting there, and I looked at Paul and said, Paul, this is insane. This is bad. Suing nuns to force them to pay for abortions. And he just looked at me, and he kind of shook his head. He said, hell hath no fury like a lapsed Catholic. And in fact, the people who leave the Catholic Church tend to be the people who hate it the most. The people who leave church, period, tend to be the people who hate churches the most. I have a friend who has decided he's an atheist, and pretty constantly his Instagram reels are all about why it's all nonsense, and he just has become a believer in the religion that is atheism. Ironically, Christians are the original atheists. That's why the Romans killed the Christians, because they said they were atheists, because you had to die to be a god, and the Christians said they worshipped a living person, therefore they couldn't be religious. They had to be atheists, because you can't worship a living person. It's kind of funny. Tim Keller says Christians are the real atheists because we don't believe in a path to heaven or a path to eternity. We believe in a relationship with a man. And nonetheless, man, you leave the church, boy, do you tend to hate the church. All these people who deconstruct themselves out of the faith. And 9 times out of 10 as well, it's sexual stuff. 9 times out of 10, the people who leave the church, it's over sexual sins, their own or someone else. And then they really hate the church. But yeah, they went after the church, and it was insanity. Like you could tell this was a bad thing, and most Democratic strategists at the time knew what a bad idea it was to try to force nuns to pay for abortions. And yet, in this echo chamber on the left, on an MSNBC and the like, everyone was hunky-dory with it. It was fine. It was wild to me, and the echo chamber has only gotten worse over time. Which leads me back to BlueSky. So Elon Musk, he left the left, and like the lapsed Christians who hate the church the most, people on the left really hate people who leave progressivism. And again, he was perceived because he was a technologist in Silicon Valley to be on the left, a bit of a hedonist. And when he decided he was on the right, oh my gosh, he's a Nazi now. So they had to pack up and leave. Now, along the way, there was something called Mastodon. Mastodon is a very confusing website. I can't even begin to explain it to you, but all the tech-savvy progressives went to something called Mastodon. The non-tech-savvy progressives, they went to this thing called BlueSky, which was actually created by one of Twitter's original founders, Jack Dorsey. And it works very much like Twitter, but it's called BlueSky. And at BlueSky, they have become much, 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 much more hateful and bigoted than the left ever was at Twitter, because they're very much in their own bubble now. You know, this thing happens on the left and the right. I mean, it happens to me all the time on the right, where I say something like tariffs. Tariffs are economically bad. We're starting to see the problems with tariffs. The things that I told you would happen with tariffs are beginning to happen, and yet people on the right want to bully you, badger you, silence you, censor you on the right for saying anything that contradicts the tribal talking points. And the left is even worse at it. And you go to BlueSky, you say anything that contradicts left-wing opinion, they're going to censor you, silence you, cancel you, badger you, bully you. And so it becomes this massive echo chamber. And this massive echo chamber is overwhelmingly white, woke, beta progressives who believe themselves online to be the alphas. And so they talk about violence because, I mean, these people, they're too weak to even pick up a Glock, let alone use one. Like, we're going to shoot the right. We're going to take back our rights violently if we have to. Buddy, you call a magazine a clip. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. But online, they can puff up their chest, and they all call it a clip, not a magazine. And they all think they know what they're talking about. They all think they're smart. They all think they're geniuses. And they all think the exact same thing on every single issue. It's like online MSNBC, except they don't even have Joe Scarborough to tell them they're bad on the crime issue. It's just this self-reinforcing echo chamber and loop of insane people and journalists, many of them progressives. They packed up and left Twitter for BlueSky, exposing themselves to just the safety of the hive mind of the left. And it's becoming a secret tool of the right. Now, how is it becoming a secret tool of the right? Because as they push each other further and further left, they begin to speak a language that is further and further distorted from reality and further disconnected from normal people. They begin to sound really nuts. So if you got my morning piece, you text data to 33777. You saw my morning piece that I wrote at like 1 o'clock this morning. There's a screenshot from a reporter for Huffington Post, the liberal site. She sends this, and I got to say, the one woman in the picture kind of looks like it's her, but maybe it's not. And she tweets this picture. This picture is of 4 National Guardsmen, one of whom is smiling and waving at the camera, with these 2 women, white women. White women is important here. 2 white women who have dressed up in Handmaid Tales gowns, you know, the red gowns with the white bonnets. They're literally cosplaying handmaidens from The Handmaid's Tale. And Jennifer Bindry, this, I better not say that. Maybe she's married. But Jennifer Bindry from the Huffington Post, this is what she tweets. A D.C. resident shared this photo she took at Union Station yesterday. Looks like a scene from The Handmaid's Tale, but no, just another day of Trump's militarization of D.C. right now. Hashtag under his eye. Yes, it looks like a scene from The Handmaid's Tale because 2 progressive white women have decided to dress up as characters from The Handmaid's Tale. That's why it looks like a scene from The Handmaid's Tale. But this reporter, who helpfully on Twitter puts her BlueSky account, seems to think this is an abomination. Literally, one of the National Guardsmen is standing, looking at the person taking the picture, smiles and waves. It's so dystopian. He smiles and waves. Now, here's the actual funny part of the picture. If you zoom into the background in Union Station, 1, 2, 3, 4 black residents just living their life. All those mean old National Guardsmen, they're there with the 2 white women dressed up as handmaidens. The black people, they're in the background, living their best life, unharassed by the National Guard, safely moving about, going about their business. On BlueSky, Washington, D.C. has turned into a federal dystopia. But there in the background, you see people unharassed by the feds going about their business. The mayor of Washington, D.C. has come out and said that they might extend the federal cooperation with local law enforcement because crime has gone down so much in Washington, D.C. Have you heard that anywhere? Have you heard that on the national press? It's true. I looked it up. I thought, surely I haven't heard this anywhere. It can't be so. Nope. Mayor Bowser, she's come out and said that crime has gone down so much that beyond the 30-day limit for federal engagement, they may continue the cooperation with the feds to keep crime down in Washington, D.C. Think about that. And that's dystopian to these white people on BlueSky. You know, it's funny. A guy came at me on Twitter who also has a BlueSky account. Says, if Joe Biden sent federal troops into a red state, you'd be outraged. Y'all, I literally did a monologue on this program where Joe Biden was president and said if he wanted Americans to think he was good on crime, he should send the National Guard out to help local law enforcement in New Orleans and Memphis. I literally said that on this radio program when Joe Biden was president of the United States. And they're like, if Joe Biden did this, you'd be outraged. No, I said he could actually improve his standing in the polls if he did it to show he was tough on crime. But they couldn't bring themselves to do it. And you know the response now was, prove it, Erickson. Show us that monologue. Sorry, you do your own Google. But I said it, and they didn't do it. And they should have done it, frankly. Make New Orleans. In fact, I pinned a piece yesterday. Said invade New Orleans. You know, forget Chicago. J.D. Vance, by the way, says we're not going to Chicago anytime soon.
There are no immediate plans, but the president has said he has the legal authority to protect American citizens, whether that's in Chicago or Washington, D.C. Obviously, as the president has said, we want the governor to be a partner here. We would love it, Democrat or Republican, if we had governors who were willing to actually be partners in cutting down crime in our country. Unfortunately, it looks like that's not what we have in J.B. Pritzker.
Yeah, it's definitely not what you have in J.B. Pritzker. But we're not going to Chicago. I actually think what the president should do is work with red state governors and go to New Orleans and St. Louis and Kansas City and Memphis and other cities that have very high crime rates in red states and make them safe. Make them safe. Reward the voters in the states that voted for Donald Trump by making their big cities safe and boost tourism revenue, boost their economies by making it safe for the tourists to come back. I can't tell you, y'all in St. Louis, so I broadcast live in St. Louis. The number of people from St. Louis who, when I said I was going there a while back, emailed said, no, don't stay in St. Louis. It's not safe even in broad daylight. Sure enough, it's not. So make it safe. It's a red state. Work with the governor. Work with Governor Keogh. Go take the National Guard in. And then when crime is meaningfully lowered in these cities and red states, show the blue state governors who think it's impossible to reduce crime that it is possible to reduce crime. You know, I mean, the biggest paternalistically racist people in America are rich white progressives like J.B. Pritzker, who really does think that black people can't live in safe neighborhoods, that crime is part of the fabric of their community. You talk about shootings in Chicago. That's not a conversation for us. It's a conversation for them. Who is them? The black residents. Why isn't it a conversation for all of us? It's not their city. It's our city. It's their abdication from the conversation because they really don't believe that they can get rid of crime in poor and black areas. They really don't. I mean, they're paternalistically racist. The soft bigotry of low expectations runs rampant through progressivism. So Donald Trump, send troops to New Orleans, send troops to St. Louis, send troops to Kansas City, send troops to Memphis. Make those cities in red states safe and show it's possible. By the way, I put that piece up yesterday morning. At 6:30 in the morning, I posted my piece saying the headline was Invade New Orleans. Less than 4 hours later, I was getting text messages from people, hey, I think the president must read your stuff. He says he might send troops to New Orleans. I don't care whether he reads it or not. It's the right thing to do. Make New Orleans safe. Prove it's possible to do law enforcement in a crime-ridden hellhole like New Orleans and show Chicago, San Francisco, New York, L.A., that, yeah, you put your mind to it, you actually can meaningfully impact crime. But you know what's going to happen if you do it? What the left's going to say, oh, look, there was a shoplifting yesterday. You haven't stopped crime. It's not a matter of ending all crime. It's a matter of dramatically reducing it so people feel safe. That's something the left has decided they're incapable of doing. Welcome back. The phone number 877-973-7425. So a number of federal judges have spoken out against the Supreme Court. They did so, of course, on background. That they were too chicken to actually speak on the record. One of them, however, seemed to be pretty brave in calling out his peers. Just listen to this. This is from NBC News, which published this piece. 10 anonymous federal judges complaining about the Roberts Court and its decision to hand stuff down on the shadow docket. Now, let me explain why they're really upset. By the shadow docket speeds things along. The shadow docket is where you don't have the formal hearings of the Supreme Court and the decision comes out the next year. The shadow docket speeds stuff up, and what these progressive judges were hoping to do was to slow down the Trump administration for another year until the Democrats could take back Congress potentially. And the Roberts Court is using the shadow docket to keep things moving along. Here's this one quote: "Not all judges interviewed share that view. A judge appointed by Barack Obama said that while the Supreme Court could do more to explain itself, some lower court judges has been out of line. Quote, certainly there is a strong sense in the judiciary among the judges ruling on these cases. The court's leaving them out to dry. They're partially right to feel that way. But, the judge added, the whole Trump derangement syndrome is a real issue. As a result, judges are mad at what Trump is doing or the manner he's doing it. They're sometimes forgetting to stay in their own lane." Yes. Now, you want to get into the lane that has Vision Computer in it if your computer's slowed down, because they can speed you up. They can get you a new computer. They can upgrade your existing computer. They can even manage your computer remotely for you and save you some money and keep you going. You call them at 404-COMPUTE or you go to visioncomputers.com. You tell them Eric sent you. You could save even more money. Here's the thing. If you're a business and you're using IT ticketing for your company where your employees, they got a problem, they got to file a ticket, they got to do an email, all that sort of stuff. You don't have to do that. With Vision, they all get a phone number. They call them 15 seconds or less. Vision answers the phones, real human beings to talk to explain the problem. They can even remote in. And your employees aren't having to try to explain the situation in an email ticket or using an AI chatbot. They're actually talking to real human beings. So your uptime stays, your downtime reduces, your employees get with the business. You call them at 404-COMPUTE or go to visioncomputers.com and you keep yourself online and going. Hello there. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. So I think this is BlueSky brain. A while back during the Biden administration, Heidi, what's her name, Presbell or whatever, I can't remember her name. She was a reporter with Politico. I think she's gone off to some left-wing site now or something. She was on MSNBC, and she said these Christian nationalists, they believe that our rights come from God. It was kind of a weird statement to come from someone like that, to claim that our rights didn't come from God. It was just a weird thing to have a reporter on MSNBC will dispute the fact that of where our rights come from, because it's been very well defined for quite some time as a society that actually our rights come from God. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, and they are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among these, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And yet here was this reporter on MSNBC trying to claim that it was Christian nationalism to claim that our rights come from God. And it seemed to be this one-off thing, but it's not. Tim Kaine is an Ivy League educated lawyer who is in the United States Senate from Virginia, and yesterday he said this.
The notion that rights don't come from laws and don't come from the government, but come from the Creator, that's what the Iranian government believes. It's a theocratic regime that bases its rule on Shia law and targets Sunnis, Baha'is, Jews, Christians, and other religious minorities. And they do it because they believe that they understand what natural rights are from their Creator. So the statement that our rights do not come from our laws or our governments is extremely troubling.
Yeah, okay, so I have found the tweet, by the way, from this reporter. Let me just play you this audio from her. This is Heidi Presbula, who was a political reporter, who said this.
The one thing that unites all of them, because there's many different groups orbiting Trump, but the thing that unites them as Christian nationalists, not Christians, by the way, because Christian nationalist is very different, is that they believe that our rights as Americans, as all human beings, don't come from any earthly authority. They don't come from Congress. They don't come from the Supreme Court. They come from God.
Got that? That not Christians, but Christian nationalists. Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin, John Adams sat together as a committee to write the Declaration of Independence, and they came up with that line about our rights coming from God. And now you have these people on the left insisting that somehow our rights have to come from government. This is John Adams. His dissertation on the canon and feudal law. This was written in 1765 by the second president of the United States while he was a colonial lawyer. He participated in the committee that drafted the Declaration of Independence. He participated in the Second Continental Congress. This is John Adams. The poor people, it is true, have been much less successful than the great. They have seldom found either leisure or opportunity to form a union and exert their strength. Ignorant as they were of arts and letters, they have seldom been able to frame and support a regular opposition. This, however, has been known by the great to be the temper of mankind, and they have accordingly labored in all ages to wrest from the populace, as they are contemptuously called, the knowledge of their rights and wrongs, and the power to assert the former and redress the latter. I say rights, for such they have undoubtedly antecedent, that is, before all earthly government. Rights that cannot be repealed or restrained by human laws. Rights derived from the great legislator of the universe. You got that? Rights that cannot be repealed or restrained by human law. Rights derived from the great legislator of the universe. I say rights antecedent to all earthly government. Antecedent means to precede all earthly government. Rights there at the beginning of time. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, and they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable human rights. Among these, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. And here comes Tim Kaine, the senator from Virginia, where Thomas Jefferson was a governor and a member of the Second Continental Congress.
The notion that rights don't come from laws and don't come from the government, but come from the Creator, that's what the Iranian government believes. It's a theocratic regime that bases its rule on Shia law and targets Sunnis, Baha'is, Jews, Christians, and other religious minorities. And they do it because they believe that they understand what natural rights are from their Creator. So the statement that our rights do not come from our laws or our governments is extremely troubling.
He says it's extremely troubling. I think it's extremely troubling that he believes our rights come from the government. But also, by the way, it's worth noting that he doesn't actually understand the Iranian government. He doesn't actually understand the Ayatollah Khomeini. Let me read to you from the Ayatollah Khomeini. Anyone who rules over the Muslims or over human society in general must always take into consideration the public welfare and interest and ignore personal feelings and interests. For this reason, Islam is prepared to subordinate individuals to the collective interest of society and has rooted out numerous groups that were a source of collection and harm to human society. Since the Jews were a troublesome group causing corruption in Muslim societies and damaging Islam and the Islamic State, the most noble messenger eliminated them. That's political theory, according to the Imam. There are no natural rights there. Natural rights don't exist in Iran. The idea that rights come from God is not Islamic jihadism. It's actually essential to Western political thought. In fact, the view that Tim Kaine is arguing for is more akin to Islam and the Iranian theocracy than the view of natural rights coming from God. It's really wild, then, to hear this stuff. In fact, by the way, it is a progressive ideology that believes rights come from God. This is Carl Becker articulating the progressive view in 1922. To ask if the natural rights philosophy of the Declaration of Independence is true or false is essentially a meaningless question. In other words, to him, nothing is right or wrong by nature. Natural law is actually embedded within Christianity. Yet natural law is embedded within Christianity, but it's also foundational to the American Republic. Now, for those of you who would ask me, what's your proof text for natural law, Erickson? For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made, so they are without excuse. For although they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks to him, but they became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Claiming to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man and birds and animals and creeping things. Therefore God gave them up in their lusts of their hearts to impurity, to the dishonoring of their bodies among themselves, because they exchanged the truth about God for a lie, and worshipped and served the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. That's Paul writing in Romans 1. Natural law is woven within the fabric and thinking of Western civilization, and in particular Christian thought that even helped advance the Enlightenment. I really, when Heidi Presbala from Politico advanced the idea that it was Christian nationalists, not Christians, but Christian nationalists who believed our rights came from God, I thought that was just a one-off fluke from a moron. But having a senator from the United States who represents the state in which Thomas Jefferson was a member of the Second Continental Congress, for which he wrote the Declaration of Independence, and also the Declaration of the Rights, not the Declaration of the Rights, man, the Virginia religious statutes and stuff, that actually very much make clear that our rights come from God. This is massive historic revision from a U.S. senator. You've got a reporter. It's not an anomalous thing. The left really believes that your rights come from the government. Side note here. There is a strain of progressivism on the right these days, too, you know. And these same people kind of articulate the same thing, that who are we to say China's wrong? In fact, there's a wild fixation on this progressive right about China, because China makes the trains run on time, and China gets stuff built, and China can suppress portions of their society who are troublesome to the plans of the state. Listen, you got to acknowledge it. Let's be intellectually consistent and honest here. But that's a minority position. It seems to be a growing majority position on the left that our rights come from the government. This is something we're going to have to deal with for this reason. If your rights come from government and not God, government can take your rights away. It's very simple calculus. If your rights come from government, government can take them away. What the founders argued, the whole purpose of the revolution was that the English Bill of Rights had, during the Glorious Revolution, established the rights of Englishmen, and it was an articulation of God-given rights put on paper. And because the colonists were actually Englishmen, they deserved those rights, but not those rights because they were in the Bill of Rights of Great Britain, but because they were an articulation of the natural rights of man given to them by God. And when the old regime, the king, refused to recognize their natural rights, it was time to throw off the old and get something new. And what was the new thing to do? To give them their old rights, the rights given to them by God. It's why historians have largely agreed, left, right, and center, that the American Revolution was a conservative revolution because it was not trying to do something new. It was trying to go back to something old. It was trying to go back to the natural rights articulated in the English Bill of Rights from the Glorious Revolution. The French Revolution wanted something new. It wanted to throw off the whole regime. It wanted to create something new. It wanted to establish new rights. What the American founders argued is that our rights came from God. They predate government. This is a very basic institutional 101 issue for American civilization. My gosh, Tim Kaine needs to take a Hillsdale College class on the Constitution. This is very, and I realize I'm preaching to the crowd on this, but I need you guys to understand. I really did think that Heidi Presnell woman, she's just an idiot. Tim Kaine is not an idiot. He actually is a well-educated person whose brain has been polluted and poisoned by progressivism, who now believes that our rights come from the government, and if they do, the government can take them away. And that is a very, very dangerous proposition none of us should embrace. Greetings. Welcome. I want to make you think for a moment, if you'll allow. The Justice Department is deliberating banning guns for transgendered people as part of a range of options blocking mentally unstable individuals from committing acts of violence. My gut reaction is transgenderism is a mental health issue, and mentally ill people shouldn't have guns. Bet many of you agree with me. The law actually says unless a person is adjudged mentally ill, they can't be stopped from gun ownership because it's a constitutional right. This is one of those things where you and I can talk about it and say, yeah, great idea, but you got to think about the Constitution. The same way that Tim Kaine doesn't think that our rights come from God, our Second Amendment right is a right bound to our Constitution. You can't deny someone access to a firearm because you or I think they're mentally ill. They have to be adjudged mentally ill. I don't think that the Trump administration can do this under the law. It sounds like something they would want to do, but we do have laws in this country, and those of us who take the Second Amendment seriously as a right under our Constitution should not be rushing to embrace denying people's rights without due process. It's a dangerous, dangerous ground on which to tread, and the Justice Department, I think, will be thrown out of court if they try to do this without having individuals adjudged mentally ill first. Now, to the phones. Dan, I want to go to you. Welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
This is David.
David, welcome. Sorry.
From Jacksonville. Yeah. You know, I had not looked at the Declaration of Independence since I can not remember. I mean, I can't remember. But, you know, I was just thinking about something. You can be an atheist and believe that you have, inalienable or undeniable rights. So if your creator is we just appeared out of a poof, so to speak, well, okay. But what this is saying is that we believe they would come from God, but you can also say, we are endowed, with these rights because we're human beings.
Yes.
And that governments are instituted among people, and they derive their powers from the consent of the people. And I think what's happened is a lot of people have forgotten that.
Yeah.
We are born with inalienable, undeniable rights as human beings. That's the difference in us and England.
Yeah. By the way, it's the difference between us and a communist regime. A communist regime very specifically believes that it is the collective people through government that issue rights. It is a distinctly Western political thought that comes from really Romans 1 in the New Testament, that our rights come from God. It is the communist regimes that actually believe that our rights are derived from a collective group of people acting through government. And that's where progressives are today. That's where Tim Kaine is, rejecting the founding ideals of the country for progressive quasi-communist thought. It's just wild to see a guy from Virginia do that. Now, let me tell you about Old Glory Bank. They have some tools available for you if you're educating your kids on finances. The tools are completely free. You go to oldglorybank.com/smart. You can see them for yourself. They have guides on how to bank, how to save money, how to invest money, how to budget, how to manage your spending. All these things are available at oldglorybank.com/smart, and they are completely free for you to use with your kids as part of a homeschool curriculum or just in conversation around the table. oldglorybank.com/smart. And then if you're ready to get a bank account for your kids, you go to oldglorybank.com, you sign up. You can go to oldglorybank.com/smart. There's a sign-up link there. You can get a custodial account for your kids that have no fees. You can do a checking account, savings account. Your business can get an account there. They've got great business managers. If you're trying to grow your business with Old Glory Bank, all you do is go to oldglorybank.com/smart. Start there. All the curriculum available, it's free. oldglorybank.com/smart. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Terms and conditions apply.